WIDR Kalamazoo.
Hello, welcome to the first edition since we're coming back of the Western News Review. My name is Daniel Ebo, and it's glad to be back on your airwaves once again. Today, I'm here with three amazing individuals. We have the existing member, Nicole Morehouse, here with us. She is now the news editor, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, the news editor of the Western Herald. Yeah, she got promoted. Okay, so, but along with Nicole, we have some other folks from the Western Herald newspaper. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we can get started. Let's start with the one on my left, right? Okay, let's go.
My name's Kayla. I'm the lead news reporter here at the Western Herald. I'm studying English and political science, and I'm very excited to be here.
That's great. Political science. I studied political science and Russian for my bachelor's degree, so that's interesting. You're taking Nicole's job now.
Yeah.
News reporter. Okay, let's go to you.
My name is Eli. I'm the lead arts and entertainment reporter over at the Herald. So I cover a lot of the cultural events that are happening on campus. I do a lot of interviews, working with the community. I'm studying film, and then I'm also studying English as a double major.
Oh, great. And I love the fact that you're covering entertainment. And how fun is it?
It's really great to have more of a... It's really good to have more of a role in the community, I'd say. It's great connecting with people on campus. It's great attending events, learning more about the kinds of community and organizations you can find around Kalamazoo. I'd say that I like helping people learn about the kinds of resources that are out there, and then I also, in the process, kind of learn about them myself.
Oh, that's profound. And great to have both of you join, and then Nicole as well. Before we even get into all the numerous stories and very interesting stories that we have for you today, how are you feeling, about coming back? It's our first time back since we left last year, and it's been a while. I'm a bit rusty, but how do you feel? Let's start from Nicole, and then the rest of you. How do you feel about, joining this initiative?
Yeah, pretty good. It's been a very busy start to the semester. A lot busier than last year, but it's going well. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am stressed. Anyways, Kayla.
I think like every college student ever, I'm kind of reached that, fifth week slump. But otherwise, I think, especially being in this position and being here with you guys, I'm very excited.
Yeah, great to have you. And Ilya.
I'm feeling pretty good. Kind of what Kayla said, I think I'm kind of reaching that burnout point of the semester, but we are kicking off with a lot of great things at the Herald this year that I'm excited about, and it's great to, be involved in that. It's kind of like a break from all the stress of classes and everything else that happens in college.
It's pretty fun to have something to go to, outside of the classroom setting, and that's why I enjoy student media a lot, because it gives me an opportunity to express my creativity and all that. So thumbs up to all of you. Let's get into today's story. So today we have a couple of stories. We have a story about the president of the university. Nicole bring us that story. We also have a story about free speech in student media, and there's a strike currently ongoing, and we will bring you all the updates on that. Kalamazoo also took a walk in honor of suicide prevention. We'll tell you all what that is about, and of course, WMU libraries have some resources that you need to hear about. We'll bring you the details of those stories. Let's start first of all with Nicole. What do you have for me?
Yeah, I have this story from Kayla about a board of trustees meeting that happened yesterday. The story covers a lot of motions that were passed and decisions made by that board, but at the top of that is that yesterday they voted to increase President Edward Montgomery's salary by 3%, which will bring it from about $493,000 a year to over $511,000 a year. And this is retroactively effective July 1st, 2023. And that's in addition to a $24,000, almost $25,000 bonus that he'll be compensated for the next 2 years.
That's a lot of money. Not everyone is happy, I want to believe. Can you tell me what are some of the sentiments after this, announcement went out?
Yeah, so I believe the professional instructors organization was there, and members of that were expressing their feelings about an unfair compensation between the president and many of the instructors at Western. One of the points that they made, and I've even seen signs around campus saying this, that our president makes more in 2 weeks than a part-time or a member of the PIO makes in an entire year. Each member of the PIO is compensated about $1,050 per credit hour. So yeah, there was a lot of opinions being expressed by those members.
And I don't know if to put you all on the spot by asking if you think these concerns are legitimate. Do you think they have a cause for concern, the PIO and anyone who has expressed a dissident opinion? I mean, if anyone wants to jump in, sure. If you want to reserve your comments, that's totally fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say definitely there's cause for concern with where all of this tax money and tuition is going, and whether it's being fairly distributed between all of the faculty members and also all the other organizations on campus that need funding. I can understand people's perspective of maybe it's going to the wrong place, and how there could be better ways to use that money than increasing an already large salary of one individual.
And I guess the biggest takeaway is the retroactive aspect of it, where it's not just you're not getting this money going forward, but also from some time past. So we're paying you from before. Yes, and I can understand, like Eli said, why some people may be concerned. But of course, there may have also been legitimate reasons for increasing that. I'm not sure the Board of Trustees would just dash out money, if they don't think there's reasons for that. So, yeah, Nicole, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it's definitely reasonable to ask why the reasoning behind this increase. This is my third year at Western, and this is the second time I remember Montgomery getting a raise, and I remember the first time there was also a lot of backlash because around the time, I believe either a lot of people were laid off or just got pay decreases. I think it was they were laid off. I'd have to go back and look at exactly what happened. But yeah, I think there's definitely room to ask why he's getting such increases in his salary when other people are struggling to see their work fairly compensated.
Yeah, and as a public institution, I want to believe that there are plans in place. I hope there are plans in place, to kind of like clarify what the issues are, what really is the motivation for increasing this, at least to people who may have reservations about it to kind of understand. So at least let us know why this is being done. Yeah, we know the president is doing a good job. At least we have a new student center that I'm currently talking from. So that's one achievement. But of course, people have legitimate concerns that needs to be addressed. And since this is a breaking story, we'll follow up and find out more, and with time update you if there's any more information on that. But let's switch attention and talk about free expression. And I guess that ties into the whole idea of the president receiving money and people, expressing their opinions or disagreement with that. Over the course of this week, there was an event held to essentially commemorate free speech in student media, and myself, I was there, Nicole as well, and a couple of us from the Western Herald and then the WIDRFM were in attendance. I'll bring you a quick excerpt of the story, and then my panelists and co-hosts will help me dissect the issue. So We Talk and Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, short for FIRE, held a day of events on September 27th throughout the WMU campus, ending the day with a free speech panel at 5:30 p.m. in the Student Center. The session was called Student Voices Matter, Defending Free Expression in the Campus Community, and held a space for student, staff, and faculty to learn more about free speech in student media. I'll give you a quote from what some of the speakers said. We had one of the speakers in the person of rank say that student media is really a surrogate for the student body. And we see this in the case law. We see that the case law says that media are proxies for the public. The media are the ones who are doing the digging. So that's kind of the job that we are doing right now. And again, I don't want to hit on the BOT issue, but that's really the available example that I can use, where we're trying to find out the questions, find out the information. I'm sure the average student may not be privy to what's happening or whose salary has been raised if we do not, serve as a bridge by providing that kind of information. So that's what Lindsay Rank was alluding to, the fact that we are proxies for the public and we are the one who do the digging. And myself, I was like, what did I say? Let's see. So I was saying that, well, free speech is important, but while we're expressing ourselves, in light of what the First Amendment does give us, we need to be also responsible, because our freedoms of expression come with some level of responsibility. Nicole also had a lot to say about that, but I don't want to go into details of the story. You can catch that on the Western Herald website, westernherald.com. Let's get into discussion about this, and I'll let you all weigh in. First of all, how is it important that events of this nature are held, periodically on campuses, talking about free speech and expression and whatnot? Why is that important? Any of you want to jump in?
I think it's very important. As we can see in an article that was published on the Western Herald last week, for a preview on this day of events, Western dropped from, I believe it was number 21 to 215 out of 248 campuses in the US in terms of free speech and how freely students feel like they can speak on campus. And even in the article, we see one student saying that this event helped her see how much she's able to express her opinion. I know a lot of students feel like they can be scared to say things because either they don't know how it's going to be received, or if the university has any say over what they say. So I think events like this really helping people understand what they are allowed to say, and as long as it doesn't fall under the few forms of restricted speech, then they really do have the right to express their opinions and beliefs on topics.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else want to weigh in? Why is it important? Also, what are your thoughts generally about freedom of expression? Since you're all Western students, I'm sure in one way or the other you've come across issues about free speech. What are your thoughts when it comes to the climate here on campus being supportive of free speech?
I think this is a really important time in our lives to learn what our rights are and how we can get involved in, especially in today's climate in a lot of professional industries, when we see a lot of workers striking for fair wages and safety on the job, things like that. I think this is a really important time to understand what our rights are and understand what we can do to help ourselves and support our community. In particular, as someone who works a lot in entertainment on campus, I see a lot of students who honestly aren't really sure of what their rights are, both on campus and in the rest of their lives. I see a lot of that with people trying to find communities in terms of minority groups on campus, the LGBT community, a lot of POC spaces on campus. I see a lot of, looking for that space where they feel like they can speak freely, and I think it's important for students to feel like they can do that everywhere and not just in one restricted space.
Great sentiments, Eli. And Eli talks about the fact that some people are not even aware of the rights that they have, to express themselves. I come to you, Kayla. What do you think may be the cause of this, this issue in terms of people not being aware? Is it that we're not engaging enough, we're not having a lot of civic education, or is is there a problem somewhere?
I think that a lot of the lack of free speech or the lack of knowledge of rights comes from fear. I think there's a fear of, especially within the groups that you talked about, Eli, of being ignored or being misheard or being, almost like... Sorry, I'm thinking of words here that there aren't coming to my mouth. That they're afraid of the repercussions of what they might say, which, unless they're, like Nicole brought up, like not protected parts of speech, like shouldn't be afraid to say. And I think that there's a lot of just that fear of repercussions, and
That's a very important point, Kayla, about the fear of repercussions, and that also ties into what Eli said about not being aware of your rights. So if you know that this is where the law stands on certain, things you can say or do, then sometimes it emboldens you to be able to say those things. But now we know what the problem is that a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people do not want to express themselves for fear of being judged and whatnot. What can we do to better the situation?
I think that the most important thing to do is for people to know how to seek out their resources. If you're not sure if something is allowed to be, spread on campus, or you're not allowed to speak up about it, you should never be afraid to ask. There are so many resources and organizations on campus. FIRE is one of them, that can inform you about your rights. The Western Herald is also a great resource for events and news and organizations that you can get involved with to understand what your rights are on campus. And so I think the most important part is just education and staying informed.
That's good. Yeah.
I think part of that comes with how we respond to other people's expressions of their beliefs and opinions as well. As you said in the article, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with expressing your opinion. And as Rank said at the event, the best way to counter bad speech is the best response to bad speech is counter speech rather than censorship and pushing it down. Just countering it with your own beliefs. But I think it's also really important to be respectful in that, and that when you are countering speech, to make sure that you're not, like bashing someone, putting someone down for it, but rather saying, this is my opinion, we believe differently, and that's okay. Because I think a lot of that fear can come from a lot of like the backlash and I started a sentence that I didn't have a way to finish. I think a lot of that fear can come from the kind of response we get, especially, as a student mentioned at the event, Yik Yak, people can respond anonymously and say what they want. And so with the ease of people being able to respond very negatively with their name attached or not, has just like instilled a lot of fear in people expressing their opinion.
Yeah, that's true. And you can also talk about, the fact that there's, at least from the student media perspective, there's always an avenue for people to express themselves. And I'm sure Western Herald and WIDR are open to welcoming people who feel they want to express themselves. You can write opinion pieces if you want, if writing helps you to let out, as long as it's not hateful, of course, but if it helps you to let out certain things you're feeling or express yourself, you can reach out to the Western Herald. If you feel like you need to talk on radio or, play music on radio, you can come to WIDRFM, and our doors are always open to you. That's our own way of saying that we support you in expressing yourselves, and that's also why we cover these events. And so if a group, for instance, is having an event, and RSO, the LGBT, there's a group called Outspoken, I think. I had an interview with them last year for a project I was working on and all that. These are all spaces that exist. So I think it also helps to identify groups that, have similar beliefs as you. It's more empowering that way to know how you can express yourself, and knowing that there's a community that supports you as well. It's a good thing to have. All right. That's about this free speech conversation. We'll do some more stories. We have a couple today, and I'll come to the current ongoing strike. with auto workers. And Kayla is going to give us that story, and then we'll delve into the discussions.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the United Auto Workers, the UAW union of the big three automakers, which is going to be Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, which is a plant not in Detroit, but somewhere else. I can't remember where. Went on strike last week as their contract renewals came up. And though this is a huge piece of news, especially considering the fact that this is the first time that multiple plants went on strike all united for the first time in the UAW's 88-year history, the story ultimately focuses on the ripple effect and the economic change that could potentially impact college students. So I spoke with the director of the Center for Supply Chain Management, and he's also the faculty specialist of marketing at Hayworth College of Business, Tom Kelly. And he kind of just discussed the fact that this strike, depending on how long it goes, could potentially impact everyday people, people who aren't even connected to the auto industry.
And before we get into how it affects, even specifically students, can you give me some details on what these workers are demanding for in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're ultimately, the biggest thing is going to be a wage increase, especially considering the fact that their argument is that the higher ups at these companies are making or have been making a lot more money, and these workers within these plants and these factories have not had wage increases in a long time. So they are asking for, I believe it is a 40% wage increase over the length of a 4-year period, as well as other benefits such as reinstating their cost of living protections that will basically allow them to make living wages and job security in case of electric vehicle increase production.
Wow. So it's obviously about money when people strike, right? And conditions of service. But let's get into also the ripple effects that you were talking about, how this can potentially affect people. I've seen former President Trump, come show solidarity. I've seen the current president as well, Joe Biden, also show solidarity, and some politicians as well as influential people in society show. Barack Obama himself as well has done that. But on our level as students, how can we be impacted by the strike?
Yeah, so it's the auto industry is a huge economic generator, especially within the United States, in Detroit in particular. And so it could be significant depending on how long the strike goes on. So we've got the specific case of this is more of a direct impact where we saw this kind of with the chip shortage earlier in a couple years ago, where when there are less new automobiles for people to purchase, there is a price increase on used vehicles. So a lot of college students drive used vehicles just because of it's a little more economical for college students. So that could ultimately impact college students just with the price increases of used vehicles. But then also there's the effect of, particular industries connected to the auto industry might be ultimately impacted. And so, when you've got people who are trying to save money because their industry is being affected by the auto industry, they're going to try to save money. And the example he used was buying generic cereal instead of name brand cereal. Well, then the cereal, industry is ultimately affected. Which, if the cereal industry is affected, other industries are affected. So this could all kind of trickle down into other industries, depending on how long the strike could go on.
Wow. And for the state of Michigan, which is, so much into, auto manufacturing, especially the Detroit area, it's a big deal for us, right? So, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. Today, they had a press conference where they were inviting even more companies to join the strike. So they're expecting 7,000 more people to join the strike at exactly noon today. So Ford, some 7,000 more people from Ford and then GM are expected to join the strike. So it's not getting any better. What should government do? Any suggestions? from any of you?
I mean, I am a college student, so I cannot give any obvious solutions. However, I do feel, as this is kind of a running theme going on today, that if they're, especially with, strikes and negotiations for pay and stuff like that, is if people are angry and they're struggling, listen, I suppose, would be my recommendation. Just because if someone is, people don't claim that they're struggling to live for no reason.
That's
so,
true.
I guess my recommendation would just be, if someone's speaking, listen. And that kind of goes with free speech as well. It's just
listen to their demands. And I think a lot of what's stalling is, negotiations coming to a point where each party feels fairly, compensated for. But that's it about the auto industry. I'll come to Eli. And Eli has a story on suicide, which is pretty important, very important if you ask me. Looking at the rate of suicide across the world, not just in the US, but in the world among young people these days. Eli, what does that story say?
Yeah, absolutely. So a local organization, the Griffin Place, hosted their 10th annual suicide prevention walk in Bronson Park last weekend. And they saw hundreds of community members gathering for the event. It's a pretty big event that happens every year over the last 10 years, where a lot of people go out not only to support the cause, but because when I was at the event, I spoke with a lot of people who have personal experiences with loved ones either attempting or committing suicide. And it's something that you really start to realize when you have those personal interactions of how serious it's gotten. One of the members I spoke with, one of the community members I spoke with that was representing an organization at the event referred to suicide as a very it's almost a pandemic in a way of we see increased rates every year due to different living conditions and lack of resources. So I saw a lot of people that day were the cause was really important to them personally and also socially.
And I was going to come to how important is this for young people to, for instance, participate in such much in terms of raising awareness on this issue. Maybe you might want to touch on that, any of you, but also what are the causes when you look at the rate at which suicide is, skyrocketing? What may be the underlying causes for suicide? Maybe in the US, let's just limit our focus to the US.
So we see the highest suicide rates with minority groups, like I was talking about, with lack of information about free speech and rights on campus. We see the highest suicide rates among POC groups and LGBT community members, mostly just because of a lack of resources and a lack of support. We see a lot of it when people are not given the space they need to access, for example, with people who might identify as transgender, if they do not have access to life-saving surgeries and hormone therapy, then that can greatly impact the rate of suicide among them. And then the same goes for minority spaces and POC groups who might not feel heard or seen and are afraid of speaking up. And so it really ties back into the free speech that we were discussing, where if people don't feel like they're being heard, then that can greatly increase their risk of attempting suicide.
Well, that's profound. And Nicole and then also Kayla, maybe touch on this for me. Why should we be raising awareness?
So this is actually like kind of like a personal thing for me, I'm sure, as well as for everyone else in this room, but it's important because I think that not knowing what resources are out there and not knowing that other people feel the same way, struggling with mental health can be a very lonely thing. And so it's easy to isolate yourself. It's easy to feel as though there are no resources, like everything in the world is very dark. And so knowing that there are other people having this conversation out there, knowing that someone else is saying, I have felt the exact same way, or I have felt similarly, you are not alone, is insanely helpful. And so I think that's one of the big reasons why talking about it is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
That's great. And thank you for that as well. And the next thing we can talk about on this is in terms of what can individuals or some things that us on an individual level we can do to, for instance, help prevent suicide, or at least help minimize the rate of suicide. What can we be doing? If you want to touch on that.
I think one of the most important aspects is just to know what to look for. There are a lot of programs that people might not be aware of how to be trained in suicide prevention. A lot of educators go through similar training. I have worked with children for the majority of my time in school, and so I have been trained in some aspects of how to prevent suicide and look for the changes in people who might be considering it. And I think that but any individual can seek out that kind of training to know what to look for. And then also just knowing that you're not alone. I think personally for people who are feeling like they're in a bad place mentally, knowing that there are resources that you can reach out to. And you should never be afraid to seek out those resources. I think those are the most important things of preventing suicide, both in suicide thoughts, both personally when you get to those dark places and also in your loved ones.
Thank you so much. So knowing you're not alone, also talk to someone if you're down or you feel like you're not in the right place mentally. Speak to someone, and it goes both ways. Be someone who other people can reach out to. All right, so be that open to the extent that your siblings can reach out to you, can talk to you if they're struggling with something. Thank you so much for your views on this topic. Unless there's any other views on that, then we jump to the next topic. All right, let's come back to WMU and talk about our library and some of the resources available for a section of students. Nicole is going to give us that story on WMU libraries.
All right. So I think everyone knows the library as a place to go to study, to get books, maybe do some research, but Western's libraries have a lot more available resources. That includes a flight simulator. Not fight simulator.
That's right. It's a tongue twister. I get it.
The ring inside the library.
There is virtual reality available. There's 3D printing available for free to all students, as well as study spaces and yeah.
Okay. And some of the things available, the resources available, is that there's something about flight simulators. What does that do? I don't know. I'm seeing a picture of it here, but anyone knows what that is? Flight simulator. I'm thinking it's a virtual reality of actually flying a plane.
Yeah, I did. I was involved in a group on with the library where we got to seek out a lot of those resources. I don't know a ton about it, but I do know it's very similar to like a VR kind of system. It takes place on a computer screen, I believe, with the same kind of controls you would see inside of a commercial plane or something that you would kind of simulator that is similar to what you would find inside of the aviation program,
That's cool.
But I think it's available to my knowledge. It is available to all students, even students that aren't in the aviation program or just interested in getting involved or learning more about it. And
wow, I most certainly will want to go look at it, because at least if I'm not flying an actual plane, at least I can pretend I'm doing it.
yeah.
So, because that's what I was going to ask next, if this is available to any and all persons, and if it's difficult to get access to. But I think you already clarified that it's available to.
Yeah. I don't know of any resources in the library that are exclusive to any specific programs or communities. I think that every resource you can find inside of the library or the libraries are available to all students.
All right, thank you so much. And so if you are an aviation student especially, even though this is open to other people, but I think it's going to be good practice for people who are studying aviation or have interest in aviation to want to check these things out and at least practice the skills that you're learning in class. And that's the top stories that we chose to bring to you today. As far as the Western News Review is concerned, I was joined by Eli from the Western Herald, head of entertainment and...
Western Entertainment, yep.
Yeah, head of entertainment. And then we also have Nicole Morehouse, who is the news editor at the Western Herald. And of course, we have Kayla, who is the lead news reporter. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Daniel Ebo. I really enjoyed this discussion. So we come your way same time next week with even more stories to discuss and share with you. Make sure you tune in and always listen to the Western News Review. For now, be safe, take care, and mental health is really important. And so watch out and be careful as
This
well.
week,
yes, Nicole.
CAB is holding Mental Health Week. So if anyone is interested on going to events to de-stress, take care of their mental health, that is one available thing at Western going on.
Who's holding it again?
I believe it's the Campus Activities Board.
Okay. So that's really related to what we just discussed about suicide prevention. I mean, you may not be suicidal, but you may be having some mental health issues that you want to address, and so make sure you participate in that. I know I am going to be there, so hope to see you. Thank you so much. Any last words?
Thank you.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos. Oh yeah, we're playing a game this weekend, right? That's tomorrow. Hopefully we win. Yeah, because I know we will win. Hopefully. Okay, catch you at the game and be safe. Bye-bye.